Long now we awaited in shadow. For your truth to be seen within thy letter, despite what many have thought to seek. The truth will always reach. Long now for the revival, the lost magic has made its arrival.
Hello guys, and welcome to our Friday night show. It is the Lost Magics, obviously sponsored by our lovely Bald and Bonkers guys. This is their show to their network. I want to do a big shout out to all of our networks and our TV companies that are putting us out there. So obviously a big shout out to the Bald and Bonker boys, to Parapost, to DNTV, and obviously to all of our amazing angels that are in the room. So tonight I'm going to be doing a topic on screen memory, which is something that one of our fam, Dobbies, asked us to look more into. She was very interested in that in the chat. So I said that I thought that would be a good category to follow and to cover tonight. But also I'm going to be having lovely Dakota coming and joining me up on show tonight, because we are also going to be talking about how the mental health side of people can be put into the paranormal and how some of these things may be determined. So it's going to be a really interesting show tonight. So obviously I've done a lot of research and study, because I only know the basics about screen memory, such as it is meant to be where someone goes through either a tragic or some sort of negative experience. And what happens is the mind is supposed to be able to cancel out some of this. Now, this is very well known in things such as like abductions with the extraterrestrials. It's known that when some victims come into contact with these beings, they actually block the mind from remembering certain things that happened to them when they were having this procedure and this experience. This is known as a screen memory, just as somebody that may have gone through a traumatic time and somehow the memory adjusts what actually happened, because obviously it's trying to exclude the negative aspects of what happened and trying to make them remember things that they can maybe carry on with. So I wanted to do the research and study into that. So I found some really good information looking online, and I've got about 6 pages. There's a few bits there where I'll give you a few little factual bits about screen memory as well. And then lovely Dakota is either going to come up through this while I'm doing the reading, or he's going to come up after I've done the reading out to you guys. So I do hope that you enjoy this show. And Dobbies, I hope that you particularly enjoy this, because obviously it was something that you found very interesting. So I'm going to get into doing the reading. Please do not forget to share out, guys. Let people know that I am on so that they can come over and watch as well. Hello, specialist. Yes, so I will do my bit first. We'll do the reading and everything first, and then Dakota will come up and join me, where we will talk to you about the mental health and how that is linked in with paranormal, guys. Okay? So I'm going to get on to doing the reading now and have a little chat to you after. Dakota can come up then as well, because maybe he can enhance a little bit more as well. So I hope you enjoy what I've got, guys. So screen memory. A screen memory, like forgetting or amnesia, is a compromise between impressed elements and defense against them. A paradoxical feature of recollections of this kind is they are less childhood memories than memories about childhood, characterized typically by their signature clarity and their apparent insufficiency of their content. Important facts are not retained. Instead, their physic significance is displaced onto a closely associated but less important detail. This placement is indeed the main mechanism here, as it is in the case of mnemonic symbols or in the forgetting of a paper name, although to some degree condensations may also be present. The notion of screen memories was first presented by Freud in his papers of so named in 1899a, an extension of his work of mnemonic symbols and the regulation of trauma in hysteria, a paper written as he was beginning to develop the idea of unconscious fantasy. Later he concluded that such memories, so long as one knew how to interpret them, supplied the best available sources of knowledge about the forgotten childhood years. Any memory could be a screen memory, in as much as one aspect of it screened out something unacceptable to the ego. In the Project for the Scientific Physiology, 1950 to 1895, Freud told of Emma, who attributed her phobia to an insignificant scene recalled from adolescence, while repressing a more important childhood event. The scene from adolescence, inscribed by Freud, also pseudos, was in fact a screen memory, serving to negate the unacceptable fact of the traumatic seduction of a child by an adult, the memory of which was transformed into age apparent amorous feeling of old adolescence. Freud clarified his notion of the defensive and idealizing falsification of memories in his account of the Batman case, where he noted that people's childhood memories are only consolidated at a later period, usually at the age of puberty, and that this involves a complicated process of remodeling. Analogous is every way to the process by which a nation constructed legend about its early history is at once become evident that in his fantasizes about his fantasy that's individual as he grows up, endeavors to efface the recollection of his erotic activities, the adolescent's memories concerning his or her childhood, those sought to negate an infertile sexuality incapable of Oedipal victory, and replaced it with more erotic ideas by means of a process that Freud compared to the creation of legend and myths. In remembering and repeating, at working through 1914, Freud compared screen memories and dreams, observing that their common trait of visual responsibilities enabled them to contain mnemonic trace, albeit in the form of dream thoughts. He added that the analytics of dreams and screen memories facilitated access to the reality of the direct experience of the past, just as effectively as the analytics of simple memories. Screen memories, he wrote, retained all of what is essential. They represent the forgotten years of childhood as adequately as a manifest content of a dream represent the dream thoughts. Could screen memories controversially be considered as a more faithful representation than memories pre-C? A note added in the 1920s to the three essays on the theory of sexuality drew an analogy between screen memories and the fetish which concerned female construction. And in the Leonardo da Vinci and the memory of his childhood, memory covers up a fantasy of the mother with a penis. 1910 to 1998, this fetishistic aspect of screen memories, as likewise of sincerely intense mimic symbols and images, clearly foreshadow Freud later viewed of fetishism. The key reference here, nevertheless, remains screen memories. 1899, in his paper, Freud evoked one of his own memories of childhood through he ascribed it to someone else, in which he saw himself playing with other children in a very green meadow, across which vivid yellow flowers were sparkled. Analytics led to the later memory from adolescence, in which he was in love with a girl in a yellow dress. The childhood memory was in this case screening off a later sexual wish. There was no childhood memory, but only a fantasy, but put back into childhood. The displacement was flagged by the intendency of sensory responsibility. A gauge of the persistence of the wish. Sensory responsibility was not always primary, however. Figurated elements could sometimes reflect wishful viable connections, as in the present context when the delicious taste of bread in memory could be interpreted as reflecting the adolescent's wish to earn one's bread like an adult. As early as 1899, then Freud suspected that any memory that represents itself to the consciousness with the great intensity might be a screen. Some creating the theory of memory as a realm deeply affected by elements of fantasy. There is in general no guarantee of the data produced by our memory. Without such a guarantee, physiologically, interperception would place its hopes in the study of reputation, 1914, or on the evidence from analytic constructions of 1937. In as much as screen memory cover up that which is unacceptable to the ego, they may be considered essentially defensive in nature. Their illusional aspects tend to inflict all remembering, which those may always be suspect of having a screen function. The notion tends to subvert the idea of historical reality, for it prompts the questions whether such a reality is the outcome of creative interpretation or of a genuine access of mimic trace. In analyzing his own screen memories, therefore, Freud developed an idea that implied a new epistemology of time and of the complexity of reality, as though a memory trace from childhood had here been translated back at a later date. The reconsideration of this fact must diminish the distinction we have drawn between screen memories and other memories divided from our childhood. Now I go on to telling you, so this bit, what this man is trying to say, he's trying to explain how a memory can sometimes be interpreted into something else. Okay, so screen memory is a lot that you could have a situation or something that may be traumatic to you that happens when you're younger or even in your later life. Okay, you could have a traumatic event that happens to you, and when that happens, sometimes your memory can block out certain events that you were recalling at that time so that you don't remember them. Now, this really does fall into the aspects of alien abduction as well. Okay, so when a abductee is taken by extraterrestrials, they will endure many different activities that these beings do to you. Okay, and they have the capability to be able to make you forget certain aspects of what they done with you. So there will be little things that you may remember, but most of the most traumatic stuff or the stuff that they feel is not for us to hear because they feel we're not ready or it would be too much for us at that time, they can have the capability to make our mind block that out. So we don't remember a lot of what happened, which you'll find with a lot of abductees. There'll be certain things that they remember that these beings want you to remember. Then you've got the aspect where they've blocked the rest of it out so they don't remember the rest of what happened to them. With screen memory is about having an event that happens to you, but you change the outcome of what happened. Your mind changes what actually physically happened to you. So you don't remember everything. And it's a complicated sort of subject to talk about because the mind is a very powerful place. And the mind is very capable of like cutting us off from things that it feels is not right for us or not good for us. And this is what screen memory is supposed to be. It's where you can endure things and the memory does not allow you to take certain parts of that data and that moment that you had that happen to you. Most of this does recall and happen through negative things that happen to you, but it can be done through other things. It may be that you've got situations that you wanted to be able to open up, say, and you wanted to try and understand more. There are sorts of medical treatments and professionals that you can talk to help you to do this, but this can be quite a traumatic thing, which is going to be another topic that I talk about on here. But I'm now just going to give you a few facts on what the screen memory is supposed to be. Okay, and then we will get lovely Dakota to come up. So the facts on what screen memory is. What is screen memory meaning? Definition of screen memory: a recollection of an early childhood that may be falsely recalled or magnified in importance, and that makes another memory of deep emotional significance. So as well as doing all that, they say as well that sometimes screen memory can make people recall a fantasy. They see a event go on differently to how it happened, or in some cases they see an event that is happening to them that actually did not happen. This is what they're saying, that this is what screen memory can be. And conclude off. What is an example of a screen memory? A screen memory is a memory faculty and a defense mechanism used to disguise the physiologically disturbance from an event as resulting from another typical less traumatic, even a traumatic event or memory. It is a blend of repression and transference. Some examples that can be a cause of screen memory would be a person experiencing severe depression and anxiety. Dreams can also be another contribute to these effects to a person. This is where we're going to bring the mental health in, and like paranormal and like all of this in, me and Dakota, because I think that this does get pushed around a lot. And I think that people that are professional use mental health a lot for a reason to why people are having experiences and having these sort of things. They say that it's not real, it's not true, and it's this, and you're diagnosed with certain illnesses and things like that, when in fact you are having these experiences and stuff. So this is why we're going to change this up a little bit. What is memory feud? By contrast, memory is at the heart of the Freudian conception of a human physique. The individual is memory, hence academic and physiologists study how events of information are stored and recalled, whereas in physiologists, memory is part of a narrative, much of which invertibly is unconscious. So they're saying that a lot of like the screen memories and the feud memories and memories that we recall are from our unconscious or inadvertently. So what they're saying is that sometimes people make these visions up. They see what they think they're seeing, and it's not that. It's the memory playing with you. So they will then start trying to put things such as, oh, this is mental health. You've got a mental health situation. You've got an illness. You've got this. We'll explain. In physiolytic theory, a memory of a childhood experience, usually trivial in nature, that unconsciously serves the purpose of concealing or screening out, or is a confliction of an associated experience of a more significant and perhaps traumatic nature, also called cover memory replacement memories. Number 5, I wrote this bit, which was the alien abductions is also another known factor where screen memory plays a big part in a person's experience, allowing them to remember the less important factors of what was seen, but their mind blocking out the traumatic events that happened to the person. It's said that there are some tests that can be done on so-called abductees to try to find these memories of the events that was meant to have happened. Some abductees who have taken on this kind of help to try to help them remember have come to have some very upsetting and stressful experiences when looking into the experiences that happened to them. Looking back to the time when they were abducted by the extraterrestrials, screen memory plays a big part in alien abduction abductees, and when tapping into these memories, it can be known to leave a lasting effect on some of the abductees in question. That was what I was writing for that, guys. So I've done the readout. So practically what they're saying is screen memory is where somebody has an experience that can be quite negative, and your mind is supposed to block out the traumatic part and is supposed to recall it and replay it with something that did not happen that way. Your memory will make you see it in a different way to what it actually was. And this is a lot of what happens in alien abduction as well. They'll have that experience where they're taken, things will happen to them. The most traumatic parts of that procedure that is forgotten, and only certain aspects are left that the abductee will remember. So through going to some of these therapies and stuff, they're able to help them to open up where they will start to remember more about that abduction and about what happened to him in that place. Now, this is a characteristic of screen memory because it's where your memory is blocking out what it feels is most harmful and most tragic to you. Okay, so sometimes you need to have some help to be able to jog that and to be able to come to be able to recall what happened and to put something right. So that was my category on screen memory. It is very much something as well, in my opinion, that a lot of people put down to being mental health as well. So there are certain factors that they say are relevant to screen memory. Okay, like they will put down things such as borderline personality disorder and such events as post-traumatic stress disorder. Both are conditions that I have, and I have been very open to my therapist, and I've spoken to them about the experiences and things that I have had. And in this, I, by a professional, was told that they felt that maybe through some of my traumatic events, it's made me believe that I have these experiences. Now, I know in myself that from a 5-year-old, I didn't have any traumatic events and I didn't go through bad things at that stage. So how would I be able to be seeing and feeling and doing these things from a very young age into adulthood? How can you put that down to being mental health? At 5 years old, I didn't have mental health. Okay, so this is where we wanted to bring this in about mental health and how it's affected in paranormal and all this sort of stuff, guys, because let's face it, a lot of people are looked up on as being unstable or not stable minded when they have such experiences as what we do as like investigators and researchers of the strange and unknown, you know. So I'm now going to bring up lovely Dakota, where we're going to be doing the next part of the show, which is where we're going to be talking about the mental health side of it and how it's introduced into paranormal and all so on like that. So hello, Dakota.
Hello, Sherry. So you can hear me okay, right?
Yes, I can. Yep.
All right. We were having some mic issues before we went on, so I wanted to clear that up now.
Yep.
Like Sherry said, screen memories is a part of UFO abductions. Some believe that when these abductions take place, not only does the mind of the abductee, the contactee, whatever you want, the term you wanted to use, essentially mask what happened just because it is simply too much for that person to handle. It is also speculated that the ETs on the other side have such an understanding of the human mind that they can
manipulate your mind to make you forget things.
They can remap how the mind processes certain things. Elena Danon's book, she talks about her contacts actually manipulating an astronaut on the International Space Station to not put out a certain satellite array because for some reason it would cause harm to people on Earth. And they admitted that they would mask the hesitation he felt as just kind of a hunch, a gut feeling, instead of having to physically sit down, having a physical sit down with these beings saying, don't do this or you're about to hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
hang on a minute. What's Drew saying? Yeah, can you see how though? Just non-believers, sis. Well, yeah, I can. And that's why me and Dakota are up here, because we're trying to, because obviously for non-believers, they find a lot of it really hard to believe in that, but trying to explain it from a category from somebody that's had these experiences and has mental health issues and things, and how this all retaliates in. You know, I'm an abductee, okay, and I've had the experiences and things, and I don't remember anything of what happened to me. But when I had this experience, I went through physiology. I went through doctors and people to help with my mental health through my traumatic time in my past. Okay, but when I spoke openly to them about my about my experiences and what I'd been seeing, it was automatically put down to being my mental health illnesses when it's not. So I was like, how do you work that out when I've had my abilities since I was 5 years old. I did not have that sort of, you know, all that bad stuff happening when I was 5 years old. So how can you put that down to being mental health? You know, and, you know, I know the difference between when I'm having a bad day with my mental health and when I'm talking to a spirit or I'm talking to an alien. You know what I mean? Like, I know the difference. And, and obviously, like Dakota was explaining, when you have the screen memory stuff, which like in alien abductions and stuff, a lot of the event that you go through is portrayed to you in a different way. It doesn't completely look like the way that it happened. And with aliens as well, if there is certain information or certain things that you see while you're there and you're having these experiences and they don't want you seeing that, they have the capability to make your mind change what you're seeing. So you do not remember that event. That could be for safety of them, safety of us. Like Dakota said, it could be because it would be too traumatic for us to take on as human beings. For lots of different reasons, and this is linked into mental health and things in paranormal as well. Okay, you can have certain experiences that are linked into paranormal, like sleep paralysis, for instance. A lot of that they put that's down to mental health. That's not paranormal. That's not this. That's not that. But how can you fully say that it's not paranormal? How can you say that when this person is laying wide awake, is experiencing this experience? They're feeling that energy there. Like a doctor would be very quickly to say, that's not an experience that you was having. That is your mental health. That is you having anxiety. That is you panicking. That is you doing this. And that's because they are learned to see only inside a box. Okay. They're only seen to see inside a box. They don't see outside the box. They don't know what real life and real reality is, do they really? They're only learned to find a medical way to explain things, which it's not always medical way to explain. Some of these experiences that we go through are very real. Dakota?
No, you make very valid points. Over here in the States, I actually have noticed a bit of a shift where a lot of psychologists are more accepting of paranormal ideas. Like during the pandemic, I had a clinical psychologist for a facility that's actively running right now with patients messaging me because he was having issues that he thought were spirits. The second I validated that, yes, this was a real call, this was a real location, that puts into perspective so many things. And there's been numerous times where not necessarily psychologists, but just random trolls have tried to say that, oh, this story doesn't check out. This person clearly has signs of mental health issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be the case.
Yeah,
but
that's what we're trying to reach out to. Not so much the professionals, but more those that come in and they see people that are different and they automatically presume that it's down to mental health and stuff when it's not. You know, like there are many things in this world that happens around us and that people experience, and you know, not everything is mental health. Even if you've got a mental health condition or you've not everything that people experience is to do with mental health. So
there's also two sides of that coin. There's also instances where there may be a situation of abuse at home to where it may actually stir up paranormal activity. A lot of parapsychologists will trace that to poltergeist-like activity when they go to reach out to someone like us to try to figure out what's going on. We can go in and say, this isn't going to stop until you fix this situation. There's been instances in my own investigations where I've ended up finding out the whole reason why activity was going on was because the late mother-in-law was not happy that a husband was cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
That's literally how it played out. Mental health is such a misunderstood concept, and perhaps going into this subject this weekend as poor timing due to the victims of the school shooting down in Texas, which our hearts do go out to.
Yes, they do.
That's something that we might have to go into a bit more, because there's a lot of people that aren't happy with the mental health being tossed around, even though No one who's in a good state of mind goes to think of hurting others in that case. And unfortunately, that also leaves a mark. Let's take another example, Columbine. There's a young lady I was helping get her book published not too long ago. She actually works as a 911 dispatcher for that area. Columbine School actually bans the use of photography or voice recorders, because in some instances, you can still hear the kids screaming.
Yeah.
Mental health is a huge factor, and it does have some kind of imprint on the supernatural as well. It is not necessarily something we can ignore altogether, like how it seems like any troll on social media nowadays seems to think they're a psychologist.
Yeah, when they clearly are not. Sorry, but you clearly are not, because obviously if like you had actually mental health conditions, then maybe you would understand what mental health actually is. It's not that we're unstable people or we're dangerous people. It's just that our minds look and think in a different way sometimes due to traumatic events and things that have happened to us. But that doesn't mean that we're incapable of being able to be connected to other things. Okay, that does not lay us off. And you know, like I've had people come up to me and go, well, some people shouldn't really listen to you because you've got mental health illnesses. Why should they not listen to me? I'm very sane. I'm very well. Okay. Yeah. My problems and my situations are due to things that other people have done to me. It's not that I'm mentally unstable. It's just that I've had a bit of a messed up life and an upsetting life, and I've needed a bit of therapy and help. Yes, I've been diagnosed with illnesses, but my illnesses don't change who I am completely. Yes, I might be a bit depressed and down sometimes, but I'm very capable of knowing what my mind shows me and what I see. And that is the difference. So it can be difficult to make people listen to you when you're supposed to have mental health issues and things like that. They automatically just treat it as being something really bad and that everything we see is false. Mental health people do not see things as being false. If anything, and as somebody with mental health, I believe that when you have these categories and these factors, okay, it makes us more open to what we see and what we do. That's why we can connect better. That is why we can understand better. That's why we can relate and reach out to people such as you, and you can understand what we're saying, because we know through experience, feeling, and through visions and all sorts of things, okay? Mental health does not stop you from communicating. It makes you a higher level, I believe.
There's, to kind of go off of what Sherry was saying, there's old Native American beliefs where old shamans would look at a mental health ward and see a bunch of misunderstood healers.
Yes. Yep.
Because their connection with mental health does play a factor. And go kind of leading back into screen memory.
Yeah.
This, how should I put it? This constant degrading of people's experiences, that could actually cause the mind to create screen memories at a time when they may be the one person to be able to step up. Say in a case of abuse where a child is getting assaulted at home, social workers, teachers are saying, oh, no, that can't happen, that can't happen. They'll start blocking it out. And it's going to be come at a point until they get old enough to where maybe they can mentally process that information better of what happened to them. All of a sudden, they're going to practically feel like they got hit by a truck because all of a sudden these things are starting to come back.
Yeah.
It's such an integral part of what we do. And I'm going to say this, like with channelings as another thing, it's actually been found that people who do regular channelings need to be careful because it fires off in the brain as an epileptic seizure.
Yep.
And there's even devices out there that send electrical signals purposely to stimulate that part of the brain to trigger visions as well. Mental health is highly misunderstood, and maybe coming out and talking about it more, we can actually find some answers to get some of these more horrific things going on in the world to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, paranormal is a complicated thing to be in as it is. And anything to do with the strange and the unknown is a complicated thing to be in, because it is about using the mind and using the consciousness and all these sort of things. And what I find that a lot of people that have mental health are treated as being incapable of being able to feel certain emotion. They don't know how to control certain things. Their mind is so jumbled up that they're not able to see things clearly. They may see things in a way that did not happen. Like, there is so much that's put against people with mental health that it's really hard for us to even be able to stand out there and to be took seriously in some categories. That's why, like, I'm grateful for such shows like this, because people get to see the real me, and that I am actually very sane, and you know, I'm very capable of the stuff that I do. And I know in myself that all my experiences from 5 and up have all been very real, no matter what a professional has told me and has boarded me as having borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah, they're names of illnesses. That is not, that those are part of me, but they are not me. Okay, they are just little conflicts of things that have happened to me. That's how I look at it. I have learned to be able to divide what I have in ability and what I have within my mental health. Okay, so, like, and anybody can do that. Like I said, I believe that you become more spiritually open through having mental health, because you've got the tendencies to be, I feel you've got the tendencies to be able to feel and understand things more because of the traumatic events that you've been through, or the experiences that you've had and stuff like that. I don't look at mental health as a negative thing. Okay, yeah, it's negative in the way that some people can be affected in really psychological ways, that they do things to themselves, and even worse than that sometimes. Yes, I'm not saying that mental health's not serious. It is, and it can be to a lot of people. But I think that people need to stop looking at mental health so much as being something that's not a good thing, and something that would tell others to be careful of that person. We should not be feared for what we've got wrong with us and who we are. We are human beings, okay? We are no different to you. You know, like I've always said to people, like, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know a person's story and a person's life. So who are you to sit there and put your view down on what you think's wrong with them, and, oh, you're nuts, you don't know what you're talking about because you've got mental health issues? And what? I have mental health issues, but I'm very capable of what I do, and I'm very good at it. And it's just part of that.
No, it's all very true. Actually, you just reminded me of this young man I met a few years ago. We were out traveling about. He got made fun of a lot because he has Asperger's, which is a form of autism, for those of you who don't know. His mannerism made it pretty clear that he had that. He was afraid that people were constantly going to judge him.
Yeah.
And what reminded me of this is a lot of this controversy surrounding Elon Musk buying out Twitter, because a Twitter board member was caught on video making fun of the fact that Elon Musk has Asperger's. One of the most brilliant men in the world right now, one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
Put people into space. I mean, all the Bonkers. We have stuff that's going to be flown on SpaceX rockets later this year. Mental health does not limit you. It does not invalidate anything, despite what people may try to say. And that's the point we want to drive home this weekend with these shows, as we focus more on mental health. It doesn't matter. That's really it. It doesn't matter. And this is such an important topic because, quite frankly, you don't necessarily go into anything involved under the supernatural umbrella completely sane.
No,
there's usually a little something going on in the head that lures you here. That's everybody, myself included.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree completely. There is a trace of insanity in all strange and unknown. Okay, so we all have got some sort of mental health apparently. Then, because we're a little bit different and things, that means we're all emotionally unstable when we're not. It's just a factor and a way of life, guys. And some of us just endure it a little bit worse than others. That's the only difference about it. That doesn't make us any less of a person. It doesn't make us any less stupid or anything like that. Some of people with mental health issues are some of the most cleverest and most sharpest people you would ever meet because of how they are. There have been certain people like if I remember rightly, even Einstein and things like that. Like they bring like dyslexia and stuff into things to do with mental health and things as well. Yeah, dyslexia. But dyslexia, there's been some of the most best known scientists of the world that have had dyslexia and had like certain mental health illnesses and conditions. It didn't stop them from being able to achieve what they did, because the simple fact is these things are not an issue in life. They only become an issue in life when people start to judge us and start to bully us. That's when all these things such as suicide and all that comes into play to do with mental health. It's the way that people treat you and portray you as that makes us that way. Because that's when you do feel alone and you feel that you're on your own and, oh, maybe there is something really bad wrong with us and maybe we're not normal. When we are normal people, but that pain, that hurt, and those things that we do get put down to being mental health. It's not. It's the fact that people don't have respect or understanding for what is wrong with us. So they bully us for it and things like that. So, mental health is not a bad thing. Mental health became a bad thing because of people's bullying and people's not understanding.
I can say better myself.
So you agree then, Dakota? Because I very firmly believe that. I do. Mental health is not suicide and whatever. But suicide and all that comes from bullying and not being listened to and not being understood and being judged. Mm-hmm. Nobody should have to be judged for what's wrong with them. Don't you think that people like that have already took enough judgment through what they've actually endured and had to go through? So you should be a decent, civilized person and understand that person does have problems and things like that, okay? But don't judge them. Don't judge them because they've got mental health, because believe me, they're probably 10 times ahead of you. No, I'm just saying that because I know that for a fact.
No, there's not a single person who has made strides within humanity, doesn't matter what kind of field they're in, mm-hmm. that hasn't had some sort of mental health condition, for lack of a better word. Not necessarily an illness. It's something that made them different. Einstein, he didn't read or even speak until he was about 5 years old.
Yeah.
And there's still matters of his that we're still trying to figure out.
Exactly. One of the most intelligent minds and men of all time. Mm-hmm. Don't never be ashamed to have mental health issues either. Okay, guys. I say illness because mine is an illness. I've been diagnosed. It's on black and white paper. Okay. But like Dakota said, there are some people that, most people in this world have some trait of mental health, even if it's feeling a little bit depressed or a little bit upset because of a situation that might have happened. Or it could be that you've lost someone that you love. You become a little bit depressed. You become a little bit in yourself. These would be traits that a professional would try to say is mental health. Okay. When in fact, this whole world's covered in mental health in that way then, because everybody experiences it to an extent. Just some people feel it and experience it in a more darker way and a more harder way. That's all it is.
No, you have very good points, and another thing when it comes to it is that the number of pills a lot of these psychologists had their patients choke down just because they've had things go on. I mean, my 14-year-old cousin, she went to a therapist appointment down here. There's a situation of abuse there, away from the people that were allowing the abuse to happen. The doctors just look at this and said, emotional fluctuations, possible history of abuse. Yeah, of course she's going to have emotional fluctuations. She's a 14-year-old girl that's being abused at home.
Exactly, yeah.
And even today, there's studies being done for post-traumatic stress pills that basically they take away the pain, the emotional attachment to whatever caused the PTSD. See, either it's a car accident or it was an abusive relationship. They figure out how there's studies being done on pills you can take to have that detachment. Now, there's been people who try to say, because I'll be honest, I didn't hear the term screen memory until we had David Hopperin from the Birmingham UFO group on the show talk about it. And he said that some patients report that their memories get altered to look like cartoons. And Drew in the chat, she's made fun of me because of some of the faces I've made during some of these interviews. It's, once again, going back to my earlier analogy, is that these people start to feel like they're getting hit by a truck when they start to realize, wait, that was something?
Yeah. We
have the potential to do everything these alleged reports of ETs are doing, even altering our own mindsets. Let's take the number of reports of people who end up with severe head injuries and all of a sudden are musical geniuses, even though they never played a note in their life.
Yep.
Mental health is an important factor that does need a lot more research and a lot more focus, because if understood, we may figure out how to fix a lot of the problems we've had all this time that plague us today.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And a lot of it is people understanding and not being judgmental. If you took more time to read up about mental health and the different conditions and stuff, you might understand a person a little bit different. You know, like I said, you don't know what happens behind people's closed doors. You don't know the traumatic events that they've incurred and they've gone through, but don't judge them for it. They don't deserve to be judged. They are still human beings. They're still people like you. They are no different to any of you. So, yeah.
And, we've talked about on the show, the witch hunts, and especially that one preacher, I think he was also out of Texas, that was wanting to start up witch hunts against simply because of his book group. If you actually look at a lot of the reports of people who were executed as witches, or some of the so-called symptoms behind them, epilepsy, schizophrenia, post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Things that could easily happen to anybody. Now, some of the reports of 30-plus school children all of a sudden going into epileptic fits, that might need some further investigating. Nevertheless, it's stuff that can happen to anybody.
Exactly, yep. And mental health can. You could be walking around perfectly fine at the minute, but you could go through, like Dakota said, a traumatic accident, or somebody you really care about could pass away, and it changes your complete way of mind and how you look and the way that that's affected you. That can make you then become, or would be on the border of having a mental health issue. Anyone can go to that. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that happens to you because of scenarios you go through. That's what mental health is.
Exactly.
nobody is born with mental health. Mental health is not something that you get through genes. Mental health is something you get through things you face and you've had to take. That is what mental health is.
Well, not 100% correct. They have found that trauma can actually be passed down through genetics.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, maybe to an extent it can, but
to whatever extent, they're not exactly sure, but there's reports, a lot of them given the headline, your random anxiety, blame your grandpa who went through World War II. And there's even reports from organ transplant victims. This is a topic I brought up a couple of times, where symptoms of the donor's mental health conditions got transmitted to the transplant patient.
Oh yeah, in them ways, yeah.
There's even basically, I'm just saying, mental health has a much deeper effect than what we realize.
Yeah.
And another point that kind of goes back to it, kind of jump back to the Texas school shooting not too long ago. There's a kind of a scary point that someone made to me not earlier today that made me stop in my tracks. This young man who opened fire was 18 years old. Yeah. He was old enough. The current school shooters are going to be the ones trained by the schools on what to do in order to avoid someone like them.
Yeah.
I love how.
And I think that does need to be, it does need to be done.
It does. And there's a lot of people that say that, take away the guns. Well, look at the situation we got in the UK where people are trying to ban knives because everybody's stabbing each other because they can't readily get a gun.
Yeah.
Hatred like that, to the point you go to hurt somebody, it's not going to matter what the tool is. People are going to still get hurt as long as we don't try to understand why people are breaking like this.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely gives you a lot to think about.
It does. It does make you think when you like somebody with how you can put your mind to that extent that you would do something like that. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have mental health to go into a school and do something like that. It's your mind and what you're wanting to do at that time. Okay, so like a lot of people would try to say that the reason he'd done that is because he's mentally unstable. That would be the first factor that most people would say. He's mentally unstable, not necessarily. You don't have to be mentally unstable to do something like that. It depends on who you are as a person and things, so who knows what this 18-year-old boy was thinking at that time when he done that. Nobody ever is going to know now. Okay, and that's the sad factor about this, that so many innocent children and their two teachers had to lose their lives because of somebody's actions. And I have done 2 videos on this where I've gave you informational facts about what actually happened and what, not so much in detail of why he done it, but what he done, and that it implied that he was going to do this through Facebook. He told people what he was going to do and it was ignored. So there is a lot of stuff that I have found out, and I've done videos on that, and I don't really want to make a big thing about it because I really don't, because you don't know who's watching these videos, and some of these victims' families could be watching YouTube to find some comfort. So all I want to say to them, as I know Dakota and everybody else, was it's just our hearts and our love does go out to you and your families, and we're sorry for what happened. That's all we can say. It's not like we can take it away, is it? We can only be sincere and show our love and our respect. So, such innocent lives.
Couldn't have said it better, Irene. And I know there's a lot of people who are kind of getting sick of that, but what else can we do when nobody wants to focus?
Exactly, and keep doing that. Like, it doesn't matter what other people say and things like that. It's very important to acknowledge what's happened and to show them that they're not on their own and that there's many, many people behind them, and you know, that we all are rooting for them. You know, you don't have to be related to these children and these teachers to feel the emotion and the pain. You know, as people ourselves and people that have got loved ones that we love, and most of us being parents, we can see it from a point of view that we would not want somebody that we love to go through that. So, you know, hearts go out to all of them, and especially to the little babies and the 2 teachers that were wrongfully killed. Anything else you want to say, Dakota?
I don't really think there's much else to say on the matter.
No. John Lennon said that maybe it's the police and judges and so-called professionals that are the retarded ones. Well, it seems like situations and stuff like this that happen, this is not the first time. You know, I've done some research and studying, and there's been over 180 schools that have gone through this. Okay, and it's, you know, it's only now that they're really uproaring a lot and saying that things need to change. You know, what about the first time when the first amount of children was shot down and the first school was hit? It's like I said, it's not so much about taking the weapons away, because the weapons should be used as a protection thing. It's just that sometimes when people get these objects in their hands, they see it as a power thing. Okay, and that's a dangerous thing to have. So, you know, like, I do believe there are procedures and things that could be put in place. I'm not saying that everybody should have their guns and stuff took off them, but I do believe that people that are mentally unstable to the point that they can practically not look after themselves should not be able to get to guns. You know, you shouldn't be able to have a gun, I believe, over the age until you're over the age of 22. You know, because you're still a child at 18 years old. You're still a kid, even though you're classed as a young adult. You're still a kid. Okay, so you shouldn't be able to have guns till you're 22 over there. If you're mentally unstable to the fact that you could, like I said, you can't look after yourself, you shouldn't have a gun. If you've got a criminal record where you have shown violence and threaten and things like that, you should not have a gun. Anybody else, they're fine. If they're you know, if they're sensible, they've never been in trouble, they've never gave anybody any reason to believe they shouldn't have weapons, then why should they not? Because it, you know, these people obviously are using these weapons as something to keep them and their families safe. Because let's face it, in a lot of places in America, it can be dangerous. And some of these people do need guns and stuff to be able to survive. Okay, so it's not about getting it completely took, but there should be procedures put into place so that it's not so easy for people that shouldn't be getting hands on guns to get them. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And things put into schools. I think that's the main thing, is that safety put into schools. Why can't they put these scanning machines in schools so that every coat, every bag is scanned? At least then it will minimize those risks, because if you're going through a machine that's going to buzz off, if you've got something metal in it and it shows off an image, you're going to see if there's a gun or a knife in the bag, aren't you? There should just be things put into place so that in schools it's more safe. That's what I'm saying. It's, you know, it's been a traumatic, and this is what I said in my video. You know, it's a traumatic time for the parents of those children, but you imagine the little ones that have survived and see that happen. You imagine the emotional scars that's going to be on those children that survived it from seeing what they see. That is the most horriblest thing you would have to ever endure, is watching people that you care about and that you know laying lifeless on the floor, and you're not old enough to understand what's going on. And you're scared and you're threatened. You can't get out of this classroom because you're barricaded in it. You know, it's awful, but hopefully the government and other people are going to make things more safer for schools. I do believe they need the scan machines and things like that so that they can see if anyone's bringing in anything that's dangerous. Because obviously at the minute, through this situation that happened, this was apparently planned. Okay. There are other people alongside him that are still going to carry out more attacks. There are meant to be more that's going to happen. And the police have been trying to look into this information, trying to find these people before anything else goes to light. That's why the security alert in America is a lot more higher in the schools at the minute, because they don't feel that it's fully over because of these other people. They're trying to get these other people before anything else happens. And with the kids coming out of school for summer holidays, it might be the time that they're thinking of striking again, you know what I mean? So they're trying to get all that procedure in place, but this was all planned. This was wrote over Facebook. His last message to his people were, whatever happens to me, I start it, you finish it. It's not ended. And I see a police officer even saying that on the video, that there's meant to be more. Why do people have to do this? There's been so much death in this world, and this is what I'm saying about, like, it's really easy to be marked with mental health issues. Like, not everybody's got mental issues. Some people are just pure evil, and just they're not good civilized people. That's just clearly what this boy was, in my opinion. You know, they've looked into a lot of things about him, and they can't really find anything to be wrong with him. So what was really his drive to do what he did? It's because he's, in my opinion, he's soulless. He's got no soul. He doesn't care about any other people. And it weren't even before that. He shot his grandmother first. He shot his grandmother and put her in hospital before he went and done what he done to the children, because she was trying to stop him. But I think we should I don't think this is really the right show to go deep into what we think about this happening. Like, we all are deeply saddened and feel for the families, and this should be something maybe where we go into more on another show. Not so much about them, but how things can change, maybe. But I hope that you did find the show interesting, guys, and that you liked what me and Dakota were talking about, and you kind of understand a little bit more about what screen memory is and how it's interacted into certain factors of paranormal. The same with mental health, how mental health can be linked into paranormal, and how it's not always linked in. You know, so we hope that you enjoyed the information and the show. Is there anything else you would like to put over, Dakota, like about your shows or anything you've got coming up, or anything important you feel the guys need to know?
Well, right now, there's a link on the screen for one of the young ladies who was in that classroom. A GoFundMe to help raise medical expense, help pay for medical bills, because unfortunately this is the U.S. and hospitals here are grubby businesses, even for a small child that got hit. This young girl, Mia, she went to the extent of covering herself in her friend's blood to appear dead to try to pull through this. And was one of the young kids on the phone with 911 asking, why are the cops not coming in here to help us? That is going to mark that school forever.
Yeah.
There's going to be a number of people who try to get into that school, claiming to be paranormal enthusiasts, try to catch the screams, just like Columbine still has.
Yeah, don't. Have some respect, okay? You know, this isn't a paranormal experience. These innocent lives were ended in the wrong way, and, you know, the families are going through a traumatic time at the moment. Have respect. Don't start going over to those grounds and trying to pick them up. Just leave them alone. And, you know, this is not the time and place for you to try and find an investigation spot, okay? Definitely not.
And Sherry's right. Unfortunately, the incidents like these inspire others. There's entire networks to try to flag this type of stuff before it happens, but unfortunately, there's a lot that slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
I know this is usually a program we talk about entertainment, and that's our way of, you know, trying to give people a decent release from this.
Yeah.
But every now and then we have to address certain things like this.
Yeah, we have to stand up.
And Irene asks, why would paranormal people want to do this? Unfortunately, it's part of the reason why the paranormal isn't taken seriously is because of assholes like that.
There are people out there that will, they might show some sincerity, but that will be an excuse for them to try and go and get some spirits and get some fame and look cool. And this is not the time. These poor children lost their life, and their parents have not even that long lost their children. Have some respect. Don't even turn up on those grounds. Have some respect. They are people. They are human beings. Okay, so don't even bother. I don't do things like that. If I hear about scenarios and things where there's been a big shooting, or when I do not go after these sort of things. I'm not the sort of person that's going to sit there and try and communicate with these victims either. I don't believe in that, trying to communicate with them. You know, if they come through and they say, hello, I'm the shooting victim, that's different, because they're contacting us. But I would not go to their location. I would not go out of my way to try and contact them, because they need to be at peace. They're not going to be at peace if you're trying to get information on what happened to them. The news and the bulletins and the newspapers should be enough. You do not need to go looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but sadly that there are going to be people that try. I can guarantee you that. Give it a couple of weeks and there'll be people there trying to, do you want to talk to us? No, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're confused. It's not a good thing to go through, is it? And just have respect. There's just some things you don't do in the paranormal field, and one of them is walk into a place where people are mourning.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, you don't know who's seeing these videos. Well, you imagine if like some of these victims' parents are on YouTube and they see a video to do with the paranormal and they see you calling out their kids' names. How do you think that's going to make them feel? They're not like a circus act. They're not something for your amusement. These are people, and these families are people that have lost their children and they're not going to see their children again. Don't be disrespectful. Just leave them alone. Let them be at peace.
Exactly. So I don't know about you, Sherry, but I don't think there's much else we can really say on the matter.
No, just be real, be safe, be true, guys. And we hope that you enjoyed the show. And just remember that you're all very special. And thank you for showing your love and support as you always do to us and to all of our sponsors and to everybody else. Thank you. And lots of love to the families of Texas. And we're sorry about this, but we felt it needs to be said. And from me and Dakota and from the Lost Magics, we will say goodnight and a merry parting. Love you, angels.
Stay.
You know this world has gone insane. It is absolutely no secret. But tonight, Saturday night, You are about to experience the true measures of what that insanity can bring you. Tonight, you are about to see Ball and Bonkers, the one-of-a-kind show that delves deep into the world with no holds barred. Now, meet your hosts, Dakota Franson, specialist of the strange, and Crystal Mule, the UFO fanatic. Now, give it up, and let's see what these two idiots can bring you.
Hey, what the fuck, Mike?
Surprise.
Oh my god. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have brought you a surprise tonight. Mike is coming for you all. So how is everybody tonight in the podcast world? I hope you're listening. I hope you're having a great weekend. Who we all got in the chat there? Paranormal World Investigators. Bald and Bonkers. I wonder who the Bald and Bonkers is.
PWI.
We got our good friend at Parapost Network watching us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have also expanded to so many different new locations on the podcast world, and we also have the Bald and Bonkers TV network as well.
Yeah. And we have some big news actually about that. And last week, how many thousand views did we get over the podcast network, Dakota?
Oh, let's see. I think over the podcasts, we're getting close to 60,000.
60,000.
Wow, that is awesome.
We got a couple, about another 5,000 through the videos all together.
Mm-hmm.
And with the acquisition of this TV network, that boosted up to another 90,000. So we're sitting. Blowing up, and it was overwhelming.
So just let's think about it in this sense, Mike. You will be in the ether of the podcast world forever and ever. Thousands
that
and
might not
thousands of
necessarily be
years'
a
time.
good thing.
You'll be there. Just thinking, if we're ever in a society where it's like Star Trek and they look up data, they'll find you.
Oh, and you are watching us live this time.
What's this? Yes, we are really here this time. It is live, my little friend, and to prove to you that it's live, we will bring you up.
See, I know it gets confusing with how these programs work, but it just makes it a lot easier to send it out doing it this way.
Yeah.
Oh, so and since I am on here live tonight, just to warn everybody, I've already dropped the F-bomb like 30 times before we went on, so be prepared.
Well, you know something? I've never heard Mike fucking swear once, you know?
You do watch my show, right?
You know something? I mean, I never swear in these lives, for fuck's sake.
I know. Fuckity, fuck. I don't understand why people love me.
It's adult rated anyway, it's fine. I've got hay fever, I'm all choked up with hay fever. I hope everybody can hear me fine because I've got a new mic, so I was cutting my
Jesus,
grass today.
tap dancing Christ.
Yes. Before the live guys, before we were live guys, we were talking about Mike, and he's got to come back to us in his strange form, floating across the air with flip flops on, and that's it.
Oh Lordy!
You know. So tonight, Dakota, do you want to start us off? What is the subject tonight?
Yes. Last night on The Lost Magic, it did end up getting a bit of dark due to current events. There is a GoFundMe to try to help the families affected by the school shooting down in Texas. That is in the description. Do check that out and donate if you can. It honestly makes the topic for this weekend's shows seem kind of off topic, where we were discussing mental health and the paranormal, how much both sides really integrate with one another.
Yes.
And Chris naturally thought to bring up this psycho.
Hey, this guy is very knowledgeable. Mike the Naked Bigfoot is one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met in my life. I mean, he does his own live, guys. So if you're no subscribed to Mike's channel,
I've got the camera off at the minute, guys, because I'm eating. But I will be with you soon.
Sure. No problem, Sherry. I will post Mike's link shortly, guys. And he did an amazing video a couple of weeks ago on sex and the paranormal. And I was honestly one of the best videos I think Mike has ever done. And I think that will go down in infamy as one of the funniest things he's ever done. So please subscribe. Yeah. There you go. Oh, did you post a link in there, Dakota?
Yeah, I did. This is Mike's channel.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for doing that.
But here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
I appreciate the plug, guys. Y'all are awesome.
You're doing a live. You're doing a live now. Was it a couple of days time for now? And it's what shadow people. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, not shadow people, but the shadow man. There's a difference.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, because the shadow man is actually, and believe it or not, in a lot of Southern folklore and a lot of Southern variations of Christianity and other religious faiths, including the voodoo, there is a boogeyman that everybody talks about, which is called the Shadow Man. So I'll be discussing my the history of the Shadow Man, and when I went looking for the Shadow Man, I actually went looking for the boogeyman, and you'll have to find out if I found him.
Yeah.
And then what happened to that?
And also, Mike plays this game, guys, and it's one of the best games ever. If he says it's a story for another time, everyone has to drink of their zesty beverage. In my case, it's always a can of Cherry Aid. You know,
I'll tell you, some people I swear, some people get drunk off their ass watching my shows.
Oh yeah.
There was one night I drank 1.5 liters of water because you just kept saying it's a story for another time.
It depends on the subject, because sometimes some subjects branch off into so many directions, and I have to catch myself. And that's my phrase I use to catch myself and get back on topic. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, but honestly, guys, if you're checking his channel out, the first video to go at is sex and the paranormal. It's very, very informative. And
do not watch it with kids in the room. I have lots of disclaimers, okay? When you watch my show, and that's one you definitely have to pay attention to, is sex and the paranormal. Nobody else has talked about it.
You need to follow up in that, actually. You should really do a follow up, you know?
I need to do a part 2 on that. There's a lot more I can say about
that. Oh, dear God.
Right, so Dakota, you were saying about the spiritual side of things. You were talking about poltergeists. That was actually interesting. About how it's usually like a teenager, right? So, do you think that's got anything to do with the mental health?
His years of experience being the grandpa in the room, but
yeah,
a lot of people really realize how much mental health does affect the paranormal, and how much dealing with the paranormal can obviously make you a bit insane. Look at the 4 of us on panel. And one of probably the more famous examples would be the Poltergeists, where often the source of the activity would be centered around an emotional teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
Being one of the more famous cases, but nevertheless, oftentimes it doesn't even have to be that. I've seen it happen with women up in their 40s who going through a rough patch in their marriages, and it's their dead loved ones coming to say, "Knock that crap off."
Do you not find it funny, and do you not find it strange that it happens to women more? Poltergeist activity. What was the case, the entity case? You know, the one I'm talking about, where the woman was attacked multiple times. You know about that, Mike? The entity case.
Are you talking? Oh, the one from where the movie and the book called The Entity was based on?
Yes. Yes.
Or she was being sexually assaulted by an entity then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when people, and I'm about to get really sexist, so everybody, this is me not being sexist, but if you take it as me being sexist, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not being sexist. But men are more in control of their emotions, and we suppress our emotions more than women do. Women are freewheeling with their emotions. And when they do, if there's any kind of mental illness that comes into play in their life, they don't suppress it as well as a man would.
Yeah.
And it's out there. It becomes a storm that rages all around them. So, and that storm can act as a beacon for some bad things to be attracted to them.
Yeah. No.
Remember the word hysterical, that's a word that was used in Victorian times. It was actually a clinical diagnosis back in Victorian times for women. But it was for being hysterical. So, but that was based on their emotional state.
I think you almost had a hex on you there, Mike.
What's that?
And when you go to Dakota?
I think you almost had a hex on you there, Mike.
That's fine. Good luck on
that. This is why I invited Mike, because he's just so damn knowledgeable about the paranormal field. There you go.
So what you're saying, practically, Mike, is that women are emotional wrecks.
They're not a mess, but they don't constrain themselves as much as men do. And then back, you have to remember during Victorian times where
Mike, I'm pulling your leg. I just thought because of like when you said it, like, didn't you see my face when you were saying it? Like when I was going, oh, really? It's a joke.
Oh God, we're about to have a battle of the sexes on there.
But of course, I'm saying it with my cold, sterile way of seeing things instead of making a judgment call. It's just the way things. Some things are the way things are, and that's one of those things. That's the way things are.
Yeah.
And I remember during the rise of spiritualism and during Victorian times, where people would do these great seances and such, that they would have all kinds of now weird and strange occurrences happen during seances and in old houses. But during Victorian times, women were meant to be more demure and suppress themselves. And when women try to suppress their emotions, it comes out in other ways. And sometimes it comes out in a paranormal and supernatural way.
Very true.
I mean, you think about let's talk about possession, right? A lot of cases are women that get possessed. Do you not find that strange that the more possessions take place, it is nearly a woman? Men, you don't hear that much about. I mean, you hear about the real events, and it's more women that seem to be possessed. And you must think about what a possession's doing to someone, whatever the entity is, because
you have to think of the Catholic Church with that too when it comes to women being possessed more, because they consider it when a demon everybody who knows me will have to forgive me for using these words. A demon or a devil that is possessing, or a spirit that's possessing a woman, it's an affront to God, because it's like they think the demonic possession is them defiling the Virgin Mary. That's what it symbolizes in the Catholic Church when a woman's possessed. And that's the reason why more cases are talked about with women, because they're much more dramatic and they act as... the Catholic Church also used these examples when it happened to women to keep women in their place, frighten women, keep them in their place by telling them you're more susceptible to being possessed than anybody else. So you got to know your place and you have to be pious. And know your role in the church and know your role in your family. That's how the Catholic Church saw it. So for two reasons, for both, the demons were doing this to act as an affront to God, and the second reason was for control. So
there you go. See, this is why I bring Mike to all the events now, because he's just amazing.
Sorry, like I said, I'm not saying this with any judgment to my tone. I want everybody to understand that when I answer questions like that, I don't say it with judgment. I say it because, as a matter of fact, it's the way it is, the way it was, the way it always will be. So,
yeah. So, Sherry, what's your opinion? I don't want to end up in a jar.
That women can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes. We are quite an emotional species and stuff, but I think we can control ourselves pretty well. The things we have to go through in our life, I think we're pretty hardcore, to be quite honest. So, yeah.
But it came what I find really interesting about this and the paranormal is that how spirits, I'll call them spirits, they're no demons, I'll just call them spirits, right, can make you depressed and make you want to, like, basically commit suicide. They can affect you.
They can have
latch onto you.
Effects on you.
Yeah. And I'll hand Dakota, Mike, whatever he wants to take it for here.
Well, it's like that devil sitting on your shoulder, that spirit sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear, telling you how worthless you are, telling you how horrible you are as a human being, that everybody just wishes you were dead, and that maybe it would be a good thing if you just would kill yourself.
Yes.
It would be the best way out. In the field of psychology, that would be, they called such happenances as a form of schizophrenia or manic depression. But I personally think that a lot of people who were misdiagnosed diagnosed as being schizophrenic or manic depressive or some form of depression, that they were misdiagnosed. I'm not saying they all were. Some people do have chemical imbalances. And some people are more prone to it than others based on their genetics. But there's a large number of people that are affected by the supernatural things around them. They stand out like a black beacon to them, and they feed off of all of this depressive energy that people give off. And some of them, get their rocks off of making someone kill themselves. Like the Lamia, Lamia, a famous Baltic spirit. It's also in the Lamia is also in the lore of a lot of Middle Eastern cultures too, and that's pre-Islamic Middle Eastern cultures. When I say that, that it sat in the wastelands of the desert waiting for people to come by. And if it couldn't seduce you, then it would kill you. It would make you kill yourself by following you and whispering in your ear until you killed yourself. And that's how it fed.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating. I mean, to think, you think about it, I live quite close to kind of an old mental asylum, and it still is a mental, to this day, it still is. But I was looking at old records that a lot of the people that went to it, I can see my dead relatives, I can see this, and that's why they were sent there, because they said they kind of things, and they had electrotherapy done to them, and that damaged them for the rest of their life.
They were tortured.
Yeah, they were literally put down to having something mentally unstable with them, and the people at that time didn't believe in what they were seeing. They didn't believe that these things are real, so they were treated wrong and tested on wrong, and that's why all these horrible things happen to him. And even it, like mental health now, like we have mental health in obviously living, but for people that go through that experience and pass away, they still, in my opinion, they still carry anxiety and carry a sort of mental health disorder. If you notice that like I've noticed with some of the spirits I've come into contact that have gone through this, they're very cabbage-ized, like they're not with it and stuff, and you can see they've clearly got emotion problems because of what's happened to them. They'll get angry, they'll get upset, things like that. Like these are all characteristics that people would put into being mental health. And I do believe that traits of mental health are not just in the living, but also when you pass as well. Like, that if depending on what you've gone through, you carry that energy on. You don't, So.
Can I say one thing really quick? And it might branch into a million other conversations after I say this.
Fire away, man.
I know. But I think it's something that's happening a lot in our culture right now, that they're equating evil with mental health. That evil is a mental health disorder. I want to let everybody know mental insanity does exist. But evil cannot be put in the same category as somebody who's insane or suffering from a mental illness. Evil is evil. It is not a mental illness. Evil is a person or a thing that is utterly and completely soulless. Is spiritually, their spirit itself it has sociopathic tendencies. And that's like Sherry just said, evil carries on into the afterlife. Mental illness can carry on into the afterlife.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the mental health.
It's something that doesn't make you feel. If you encounter something that's truly in the spiritual world that was once human, and that once human was pure, undeniable evil in their life, they're going to be little or nothing but pure, undeniably evil in their next life, to the point to where their spirit would not be recognized as ever being once human. Now, a spirit that suffered from mental illness, it still has the humanity about it. It still has a sense of goodness and humanity about it. But I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, mental health isn't an evil thing. Mental health is just something that people endure because of, situations that they go through and stuff. If anything, the things that happen to people is what's evil, the things that they've had to face and endure, and I think a lot of people are quite judgmental over mental health people. I have borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm very, very sane. And I know that everything that I have and I've done since I was 5 is very real. But yet you've got professionals that would sit there and say to you, you're going crazy, it's your mental health. Or when you feel these things, it's your mental health kicking in. But how do you explain that at a 5-year-old then that used to see it the same way? She didn't have that problem then.
It's actually interesting you say that, right? Because then you get let's say a kid, 6, 7 years old, right, that's got an imaginary friend, right?
Yeah.
That says, this imaginary little girl comes, or this imaginary little boy comes and plays with him, right? The parents then go, there's something wrong with my kid. Take him to a doctor and they give him God knows what. They give him all these weird drugs, right? But what happens if he's really actually seeing a spirit of another child? It might not be his child. It might be something else.
A lot of these imaginary friends and stuff are a spirit. Yeah. That they're beings that once existed. These children are seeing them, But like you said, like a lot of them, especially back in the olden days, like if a child turned around and said, "Oh, I'm seeing this, seeing that," they'd take them to a hospital or something. Say there's something wrong with my child. She's saying she's seeing this, and it is medication even up till today. Like I remember when I first was diagnosed, I was on so many different medication, I couldn't even function properly. I was not who I am. I find that medication very much overclouds the true person, and I believe it takes away who they actually are. And it did to me for a long time. I wasn't myself, and it was only when I got really sick and that I said to them I didn't want to do that anymore, and I just done my therapies and stuff, and they see I was doing really well, and they signed me off. But they wanted to put me back on medication, and I was like, I don't want to go on medication because you made me worse instead of better. I done better with you sitting there talking to me and listening to me than you pumping stuff down my throat, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I've been in a mental hospital. I'm not ashamed to say it either. Like, I went through a very major mental health breakdown due to my kids and what happened to them, and going through violence as well. So I ended up in a mental hospital, and it was then being in there and seeing these other people that were very poorly that it made me realize that I could get myself to grips and I could sort myself, and I didn't need to be there. I wasn't like them. Yeah, I'm not well. I wasn't well, but I wasn't unwell in that way that I should be in there and be locked away. I was just hurting. I was, but because I had a mental health issue, they presumed that I was cracking. And because I was seeing certain things and feeling certain things because of my emotion, I didn't want to be here. I attempted suicide. I tried to drown myself, but some voice, which sounded like my son, come to me saying, "Don't do that, Mum." So, and I come back up out the water. You know what I mean? But I've attempted several times. I have. And, like when people go, "Well, and you're ashamed of having," I'm not ashamed of having mental health issues, and I'm not ashamed of who I am. People have endure different things, like, why would you ask such a question like that when you don't actually know my past and what's happened to me? Like, for me to even still be sitting here and talking to you is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Sherry.
I'm not ashamed to share it. That's the thing. I'm not.
Yeah.
And, if people want to judge me and say, "Well, she's not right," that's down to you.
I suffer for depression too. I suffer for it too, and I've came close a few times. I have came close a few times to ending it, but I don't know. There's like a voice there that's basically saying, "Don't do it. You'll regret it. Don't do it." And I don't know. Maybe it was something. Maybe it was
with the tablets. It's a bit different. I did actually do it, and luckily, a friend come in and found me in time and put me on my side, and I threw it all up because I wouldn't have been here, literally. So yeah.
Dakota?
I was going to say, anybody who's followed the show for a while now or followed me since before we all started coming together knows that my story, there were situations of borderline abuse, and I'll be completely honest. There's certain things I've revealed about myself on these shows that my mother had absolutely no clue about until she happened to listen one day. Mm-hmm. And it was situations where even psychologists step back and have to say, okay, clearly something's looking out for you. And that was the situations with my daughter, and apparently that's involving aliens, but that's a story for another time, as our dear friend Mike would always say.
Mike, what's your thoughts on this?
I'm going to start charging $5 for everybody who says that.
You have a billionaire at the end of the week.
I'll be very rich. Well, a lot of people who have known me from my show and from where I've gone on other people's shows as well. I did suffer from probably what would be diagnosed as a really strong clinical depression when I was much, much younger in my latter teenage years. And I did. I went through several bouts of wanting to, I took my grandfather's gun. I took my father's gun. And I did try to kill myself in various places, usually by myself, isolated someplace. One time it was a football field. One time it was a cemetery. But it was always a place that I felt was perfect for me doing it at. It was a compulsion to want to do it. I'm not saying that something was sitting on my shoulder telling me, "Oh, go out there and pull the trigger. It's time for you to pull the trigger." But it was just an overwhelming feel of abyssal sadness. It was like being in a closet in a room in a house with no windows. Yeah. That's how I saw my world. And when I would look around me every day, when I would wake up and go outside, I didn't see a bright and beautiful world around me. I didn't see the colors of life. I didn't see the vibrancy of life running through everything around me. What I saw was the world dying around me. I'd see the trees wither and the leaves fall off the trees. I'd see the grass turn brown and turn to dust. Whether that was real or not, I couldn't say. But it made me feel like that this death I saw around me was something that I needed to be a part of. And it made me sad. Yeah. But I did. It sounds odd to say it out loud, but it is the truth that I had spiritual guidance and spiritual help that intervened on every occasion and kept me from pulling the trigger every time. And the same message they would say to me every time was, today is not that day. And they would have their hand on my hand, and I would pull my hand away from my head. And usually when I would turn around, very first time I tried it, I pulled the gun from my head because I couldn't believe at first this was happening, that something was there with me telling me this, that it wasn't time. But when I turned around, I saw a woman who turned out to be a great friend and mentor to me in my life. That was with me, who appeared in my life both times when I was at that point of death and despair, literally.
Yeah.
And somehow she always appeared on the scene after I was told no, spiritually. And she would always appear on the scene to sit down with me and talk to me. And she was always able to pull me out of it. And she helped me to see. It took a very long time for me to see it, but she showed me, she said the feelings I had were real, that I shouldn't suppress them, but I should temper them with life. The death that I was feeling inside of me, I could temper with life. And she taught me how to see life around me, and taught me how to see color again, and the beauty in everything. And the beauty in the most tragic of things that happen, she taught me how to see that. She said, it's okay. She taught me, I went to her studio. She was an artist. I spent a lot of time in her studio. Mm-hmm. And she told me, when she would give me a piece of clay and tell me, just make something. I became quite adept at making spirit masks that represented the spirits that I would see in my dreams at night. And some of them were quite hideous. And she told me, she said, it's okay to make things ugly. She said, but they can also be beautiful. She said, you see that face that's snarling out of the clay mask that you just made? I said, yeah. She said, make a small daisy and put on it. Add some beauty to the ugly. And she said, because it belongs there. Beauty belongs with ugly at all times, and life belongs with death at all times. She was quite sage with her wisdom. But she helped. She was the human that helped save my life. So,
yeah.
And I so hate hearing that people don't have anybody. I was lucky that I had all the help that I had in my life, both in the spirit world and in the physical world. And it just damages me to my core about how people do and feel like they're alone. And then when you look at their life after they've killed themselves, and you look at their life and the people that were in their life, they may have had a mother, but it was a mother in name only. They may have had a father, but it was a father in only. They never had any kind of structure, loving and living structure to their lives.
No.
And that leads people to despair. And they don't have that spiritual structure and that physical structure in their life. And despair eventually, unfortunately, to other bad things. Sorry, I got a little preachy there for a moment.
No, honestly, I found that quite moving, actually. I don't know about you, Dakota, Sherry. I found that really moving, actually.
I can relate when it comes to the spirits being there, most definitely. It's always been the spirits that I've been able to count on. I've never been able to count on the living. The kind of thing that Mike's explaining is how my life has been. Like, yes, I love my mum and stuff like that, but it's been a really difficult life. And through growing up and just not being who I wanted to be, and I wanted to be a kid, but I wasn't a kid. I had to take too much responsibility, and then I went through situations where I lost some of my very good friends and stuff like that. That put me in a really, really dark place. And I can understand when Mike was going on about being in a place that feels like it's dark and that everything just feels like it's death around you, because it was exactly the same for me. I just didn't feel that there was any way out. I felt consumed by this darkness. I didn't feel that anybody could see me or hear me. And I constantly always just felt like that nobody cared. And the only one that ever showed any sign of caring was the spirit. It was the spirits, but like my loved ones that weren't here anymore, the ones that I could confide in the ones that had my back. Same as my friend. My friend was my main one when I was going through that. And committing suicide, like I said, I heard my boy. I'm not on about my living boy. I heard my boy that I lost through miscarriage. I heard my son Leo calling me from the other side, going, "Mum, get up." That's all I heard. Like, "Mum, get up." And I come up out of the water. Obviously, with the tablets, even though they were trying to go with me at that time, I was so far gone that nothing mattered to me anymore. Like, my kids and everything had been took off me. I didn't feel I had anything there, even though they were trying to beg with me. But they made me speak out to somebody because I wrote over an internet chat saying, "I don't feel good. This is it. This is the end." My friend knows that when I say something like that, don't ignore it. Okay, so to come to my aid. I mean, and if she didn't, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys now.
See, with me, I was out, like Mike says, you used to look at stuff and everything would be like in black and white.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say, Mike? Everything was like in black and white. And one day, I don't know what it was. It was one night I had a weird dream, and it was so real. And it was my grandmother came at me, right? I was quite close to her. And in the dream, she showed me this, and she says, "This is all what you will see one day, but you have to stop this getting depression and that." And I went a walk, and I went into this valley, and the bluebells were out, and the water was, and there was butterflies everywhere. And now when I look back at life, it's like I see the beauty in it and life, right? So there's a bit where I go, and it's got the bluebells, and it's got the white butterflies, and it's the stream, and you think to yourself, this is heaven. You know, this is heaven. I was given something. The same, like Mike was given something, and you were given something.
Yeah, I was shown pretty things, but I think my breakthrough was through when I had my psychology and stuff like that. I went through several different therapies to try and help me, and we would learn different structures and different ways to cope with like negativity and that. Like, we would talk about the stories and the things that I'd gone through. Then we'd try and switch that around and how we could put that into a positive. So like, I'd gone through sexual abuse. Yeah, you can't change sexual abuse, okay? But you can try to bring a positive out of that. Even though you've been through all this nasty stuff, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So they would make me see, okay, you went through this abuse, but you're strong and you're going to be able to help others to get through that. You can bring a positive and a light out of this. So it was just things like that they would do with me to try and turn my scenarios around. And that's when I started to see the world changing and becoming back to colour again. When I actually got the right person there, and obviously the support of my spirit people as well, just being there.
Yeah, I think that does help. Dakota, would you like to?
I was just going to say, I completely agree with what everybody's saying. For me, it actually took a trip to China, of all things. In high school, I had this teacher who would organize yearly trips to someplace random. I found out the main reason why he did it was because with the group he went through, if he got at least 6 people to come with him, his spot would be paid for. So he'd get free travel out of the ordeal.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
I've been on trips like that.
You're right. So, it was at a point in my life where I didn't really see anything going anywhere. I was constantly letting my anger get the best of me, going off on people that honestly didn't deserve it. But I had this one opportunity. I was like, you know what? This is going to be my last ride. And then when I got over there, first of all, I couldn't believe I was in China, of all places. This was well before the pandemic. Yeah. And stuff really started going south over that part of the world. But then there was an incident where somehow we think it may have been that the water wasn't filtered right, because pollution is a big problem over there. They say just someone walking around on their daily commute for a 9 to 5 would breathe in the equivalent of smoking like 10 packs of cigarettes within an 8-hour period. Then we ended up getting onto a plane and started succumbing to food poisoning as we were on the flight. And our group, apparently, we ended up making company history with that tour company, but our group actually ended up in the hospital because we got so bad. I was one of the worst. Now, mind you, there's probably footage out there somewhere of this incident because